Hello, good evening, and thanks for being with us tonight here on the Hill. Tonight around the table, but not for everyone. The shakeup at the cabinet meeting. Who got to speak and who didn't? Plus, will the lights stay on? There is news at this hour, really within just the last couple of minutes here. The threat of a partial shutdown just hours away as funding for ICE becomes the new battle line.
Hopefully we won't have a shutdown. And we're working on that right now. I think we're getting close. The Democrats, I don't believe, want to see it either. So we'll work in a very bipartisan way. I believe not to have a shutdown. We don't want a shutdown.
Also happening at this hour, 1,000 drones. That's part of the Iranian response as the commander-in-chief weighs new strikes. Senator Dave McCormick with us tonight here on the Hill. And the robots. They are coming. The major announcement from Tesla. Are we around the corner from robots in your living room? But first tonight, the talk of the towns. President Trump's new main man in Minneapolis, Tom Homan, going before the cameras today. Homan saying major changes are coming to the surge in Minneapolis.
Matter of fact, I have staff from CBP and from ICE working on a drawdown plan. What does that look like based on the cooperation? What does that look like based on how many targets we have left to find?
And shortly after, back in this town, President Trump holding his first cabinet meeting of the year. For nearly an hour and a half, the president going around the room. You know, he normally does that, calling on key cabinet members. But President Trump today skipping past the DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. And at this hour, Congress is on the clock. A Friday night deadline to avoid a partial government shutdown. At the center of it all, funding for ICE and potential changes to that agency. Reporters across the nation tonight, Nancy Liu heard from Trump's border czar in Minnesota today. Joe Khalil just put an alert in our inbox moments ago relating to that possible shutdown, what Joe's hearing tonight. But first, over to the White House and our Kelly Meyer. Hello, Kelly.
Hey there, Blake. So we've been watching President Trump today, and he didn't make any mention of Minnesota immigration, his crackdown there in his first cabinet meeting of 2026. And he didn't even call on his cabinet member in charge of immigration. That's Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Now, the White House could say, as the president said, he didn't have time to get around the room. But there are questions as there is this growing pushback against the secretary with calls from Democrats and Republicans on Capitol Hill for her to step aside. The president avoiding calling on her today and didn't take questions from the press. And he didn't just moments ago in another event in the Oval Office, which is unlike him. But we did hear from the Minneapolis mayor today, who was in Washington, D.C. And we heard the president say that he had a good call with him on Monday amid progress. He said that was being made, but then he warned him that he is playing with fire over his resistance to federal law enforcement. Take a listen to this.
Operation Metro Surge needs to end. This kind of conduct and siege needs to stop, not just in Minneapolis. It needs to stop nationwide.
Now, we do expect to hear from Secretary Noem, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard tomorrow here in Washington, D.C. at an event on election security and taking questions from Secretaries of State in the audience. Blake.
Our Kelly Meyer live tonight over at 1600. Kelly, thank you. Our Nancy Liu now live for us once again from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Nancy, Tom Homan there today on the ground.
That's right, Blake. And despite Tom Homan's mention of a drawdown here, a federal force of about 3,000 remains on the ground here in Minnesota. And that's why a lot of activists and residents here, they remain skeptical about any easing in immigration enforcement. In fact, there's been no break in local ICE operations. Case in point, what we saw today, the federal crackdown forging on with new enforcement operations in Minneapolis. This one in a neighborhood just north of downtown, prompting watchers orders to yell out and sound warning whistles. Today, Borders Are Home reaffirmed a commitment to ensuring public safety and better cooperation with local authorities to honor ICE detainers, allowing agents to nab known criminal targets within the correction system. And despite the federal reset and admission of a need for change, Homan stressed that there will be no surrender in the president's mission for an immigration crackdown.
Nothing's ever perfect, and anything can be improved on. And what we've been working on is making this operation safer, more efficient. If you're in the country illegal, you're never off the table.
Now, the border czar refused to comment or share his opinion about a new video now circulating from January 13th, which shows Alex Preddy violently kicking out the taillight of a federal vehicle. He's also seen spitting and yelling at agents. The family's attorney claims nothing about the incident justified the killing of Preddy 11 days later. Now, more protest actions are planned for tonight here in Minneapolis, and there's a nationwide general strike, of course, planned for tomorrow. Blake?
Nancy Liu, live in Minnesota tonight. Nancy, thank you. Lawmakers right now trying to put together a deal to fund the government. This all centers around the Department of Homeland Security and funding for ICE. And just moments ago, our Joe Khalil reporting on the possibility of a deal. Joe K., come on in. You're up there on the Hill. What are you hearing right now? It seems like maybe some sort of a short-term measure.
Yeah, so we've been reporting on this deal throughout the day, Blake. What I'm told by senior Republican leadership right now is they're not there yet, but they're basically at the 1 yard line, to use an overused football metaphor here. What this would look like is of the 6 funding bills to fund the government and avert a shutdown, 5 of them are going to be put together, likely get a vote either tonight or tomorrow, and they will move forward as normal. The one bill that is separated out is funding for Homeland Security, and that is because Democrats want reforms to ICE and ICE practices after the shooting last week. Republicans are also willing to make some of those changes, but they say they want to see other protections for ICE. So there's going to be a negotiation on that. In the meantime, what we're talking about now is a 2-week short-term funding bill, a CR, just for Homeland Security, which is good news for things like the Secret Service and FEMA, because that means they wouldn't go without money in the next few weeks or so. Now, this doesn't exactly mean there's not going to be any shutdown. There may be a short-term shutdown, Blake, over the weekend. But if it's just the weekend and the House comes back Monday and finishes all this, it would not be super serious in terms of its effects. We are waiting to see whether this deal is officially finalized. They're very close, and they could be voting on this as soon as tonight.
Joe K., live for us with the breaking news up on the Hill. Joe, thank you. With me now, Todd Gloria. He is the mayor of San Diego, who has recently said his city will not cooperate with ICE. Mayor, thanks for being with us. You're in town for a big event with other mayors here in Washington. I'll get to that on a second. How far do you want Democrats to push on Homeland Security funding?
I think they should push very hard. What's happening in America's cities is not acceptable, and it's not sustainable. And they have the power to help change the policy, and we hope that they would use that opportunity.
When the White House put out a post the other day calling for America's mayors to, quote, cooperate with the Trump administration to enforce our nation's laws, you said no. Why?
Because what we're seeing in cities like Minneapolis, but in cities all across the country, are operations that are not lawful. If my police department behaved in the way that we're seeing some federal agents operate, they'd be dismissed, they would be put on administrative leave. This is not how we do policing. And why I'm so concerned about this is that this is a temporary situation. It sounds like there's a pulling back in Minneapolis, but the loss of trust in that community and in communities across the country, including mine, will be left for mayors to actually repair.
How do you justify saying we're going to support police, we're going to back police, we are not going to back law enforcement at the federal level?
Because our local law enforcement should not be enforcing federal immigration law. That is for federal immigration agents to do. Reminder that our country has enforced immigration laws for a century. We've had ICE for 23 years. It has never been like this. There has been a change in Washington to make this work in a way that does not work for communities. It is being done under the guise of making our communities safer when it is making our cities less safe.
Do you give the president credit for what's happening at the border? 93% decrease in apprehension in the San Diego sector over the past year?
San Diego is the biggest border city in America, and we want a strong border. We want to have protections and controls that are there. But that is fine in and of itself. But what is happening in the interior, where families are being torn apart, where construction sites are being raided, these are not the people that we were told that were going to be apprehended, namely convicted hardcore criminals. They're taking parents away from their children. This is not a sustainable way, and it does not build trust in communities, which is my concern. We work hard every day to drive crime down in cities like mine, across the nation, historic crime lows. Yet what is happening will reverse that, because communities will not work with law enforcement, including local law enforcement, because of what's happening in Minneapolis.
What the president's trying to do is focus on the border. Do you want him to continue going on the border? Because it's, 93% decrease in your area.
I think border security is very important, not just for the people who cross the border, but for the drugs and guns and other things that come across. Yes, I would like to see a strong border, but what is happening, I do not believe, is in furtherance of the border. You're taking dishwashers and housekeepers and construction workers. These are people who power our economy. And what is probably most disturbing to me, Blake, and to many mayors, this is a bipartisan issue. The U.S. Conference of Mayors has condemned what is happening in Minneapolis, is that there's not a solution in sight. When do we get to the point about fixing national immigration policy, which is driving this problem? Enforcement, okay, but there's no addressing of the policy. And until there is, this will continue to happen.
Here was Tom Homan in Minneapolis today, and then we'll pick it up.
We made some significant gains, significant coordination and cooperation, and you're going to see some massive changes occurring here in this city.
Says there's going to be changes. This is a guy who's not only worked in Republican administrations, but also Democratic administrations. You take him at his word?
Well, because he's worked like that, he knows how this is normally done and how it can be effectively done. Reminder that President Obama was called the deporter-in-chief without these kinds of tactics. So he knows it can be done a different way. But we are, in my state, California, our localities are legally prohibited from interacting and helping to support immigration enforcement. We will follow state law.
Why don't you change the sanctuary city policy?
Well, the city of San Diego has never declared itself a sanctuary city, but our state does say that cities like mine are not permitted to enforce immigration law, and I think that that's an appropriate thing to do. When you're trying to build trust with the immigrant communities, you want them to report crimes that happen to them. You want them to serve as witnesses for crimes they may observe. When they think that there's a risk of immigration enforcement by local police, that will not happen.
By the way, ICE in San Diego from January to October 2025, 5,183 illegal immigrants who were arrested. In 2024, that number was 783. You see the uptick there. Yeah. Todd Gloria, the mayor there in San Diego, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Here tonight on the Hill. Appreciate it. All right, still to come, TikTok. President Trump says it's time for Iran to strike a deal or face perhaps another military strike.
When President Trump said we're not getting a nuclear Iran, you won't have a nuclear bomb, he meant it.
Plus, disturbing attack. What we're learning about the driver suspected of ramming their car into a Jewish organization's building in New York. And ready or not, here they come. The robots. What Elon Musk is now saying, and we are introducing you to one company who says, get ready for what Musk is says is about to come. I'm Blake. I'll see you back here.
Sprout, a humanoid robot that's less Terminator and more Wall-E. At just 3.5 feet tall, Sprout nods its boxy head, raises eyebrows like windshield wipers, and even offers a handshake.
I'm Blake Burman. We'll introduce you to that company on the other side. See you in 4. Thanks.
With Iran right now, ensuring that they have all the options to make a deal. They should not pursue nuclear capabilities. So we will be prepared to deliver whatever this president expects of the War Department.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth in today's cabinet meeting, side by side, sitting next to the commander-in-chief as the administration tries to pressure the Iranian regime into a nuclear deal and puts that nation on the clock. Our Robert Sherman live for us once again abroad with the very latest out of the Middle East. Robert?
Well, hey there, Blake. Well, the president putting more and more pressure on Iran with more firepower in the region. And you heard the dialogue between the president and the Secretary of War saying they're ready to go if need be. The president wants a deal on Iran's nuclear capabilities and production, and also wants the retaliation and the measures taken on civilians in Iran to come to an immediate end. That is what he has been calling for and wants a deal to be struck on this front. To this juncture, though, Iran has remained defiant of the West. In fact, today they made an announcement. They have the intention of carrying out what they described as live fire drills in the Strait of Hormuz. Why is is that significant? Well, about 20 million barrels of oil go through that highly critical trade corridor on a daily basis. Now, that being said, though, Iran is also boasting about some new technology that they're prepared to put at their disposal, claiming 1,000 new drones have been delivered and deployed to various regiments, saying if push comes to shove, if pressure mounts from the West, they're prepared to use them at a moment's notice. Blake?
Robert Sherman, live for us tonight. Robert, thank you. With us now here on the Hill, Senator Dave McCormick, Republican from Pennsylvania, member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. The senator also attended West Point, served as a captain in the 82nd Airborne Division. Senator, first time on the show. I thank you for your time. Thanks for being with us tonight. You just heard Robert there abroad. Iran bringing the rhetoric up. We know the president's talking about an armada. Do you think the most likely scenario here is some sort of a deal or some sort of strikes from the U.S. military?
Well, I think what we should be focused on here is we're at a moment of unique transformation in the Middle East. And Iran has been the supporter of state-sponsored terror, has suppressed its people, have killed thousands of people over the last month or so. And they're at an all-time point of weakness. The regime is bankrupt. Economically, 80% of the people are in poverty. Its military capabilities greatly diminished by the attacks by Israel and the United States. And the Ayatollah is 86 years old. There needs to be a change. And I think the United States is putting enormous pressure. President Trump's putting enormous pressure. And I think we'll see a change. I don't know if it's days or weeks or months, but I think we're at a moment that uprising in the streets cannot be minimized.
How does that change come, Senator? Does it involve, in your view, U.S. military action?
Well, you know, the president's, I don't presume what he is thinking he might do, but recognize there's an enormous amount we can do with military capabilities that would go far beyond the idea of putting troops on the ground. So we have all sorts of sophisticated technological capabilities to put pressure on the Iranian regime. Economic, with the sanctions we're doing. We have enormous intel assets. We've shown the capabilities we can bring to bear in the case of Venezuela. So I think there's lots of ways to put pressure on here, and I think the president is putting himself in a position where he has a wide range of options. So I wouldn't presume how or when, but I do think he's able to apply a lot of pressure, and I do think that pressure is appropriate.
Senator, I gave some of your background. In a former life, you were running one of the biggest financial companies, financial firms in the United States. I'm looking at right now crude oil prices rising close to 10% in the last handful of days. There's the chart there on our screen for our new audience here on News Nation or those listening to us on Sirius XM. If there is some sort of action, do you have any worries, Senator, or what do you think would come next as it relates to oil prices and what that would mean for Americans at the pump?
Well, obviously, geopolitical uncertainty often has a big effect on markets, and I think that's what we're seeing here. Your reporter said, the Straits of Hormuz have enormous amount of oil that flows through them.
Like 27%, I believe. So it's a huge part of. Yeah, it's a huge part of the oil flow.
Exactly, but I think stepping back, I wouldn't focus so much on the day-to-day price action. I'd focus on the question of, are the steps that the president's taking putting America and the world in a position for energy dominance? And I think the move in that took place in Venezuela, that's 17% of the oil reserves there that can be unlocked. They only export about 1%. What's happening in the Middle East, this will ultimately make for a safer, more stable Middle East with a new regime in Iran, which will be great for energy prices because the supplies across the Middle East won't be at risk. So we may have some near-term disruption and near-term price action. I wouldn't want to predict that. But the trend here is to create open markets and the opportunity to develop those energy capabilities in Iran, Venezuela, and around the world.
I'm looking at thehill.com right now, Senator. Main headline, Senate strikes deal to avert partial shutdown. Are you going to vote for it when it hits the Senate floor?
Well, you're one step ahead of me, so I'm not sure what the outline of that deal is. I know there's been good faith negotiation.
I'm breaking a little news to you here, Senator.
Yes, sir. I mean, listen, I would never, I don't want to vote for shutting down the government. I think that's a bad vote. I think what the Democrats are doing is theater, political theater. The actions to stop the funding for DHS won't affect ICE at all because it's already funded through the Working Families Tax Cut Act. So the only thing it's going to do if we shut down the government or shut down the DHS appropriations bill is to put pressure on FEMA and the Secret Service and the Coast Guard at a time when we're facing, really historical storms in much of America. So I don't think this is good policy. I think it's bad behavior on the part of the Democrats. However, I do know that cooler minds are prevailing here, and they're trying to find a path through this. And I'm certainly supportive of anything that's not going to shut the government down.
All right, Senator Dave McCormick, hope you come on back, by the way, on the issue there of Iran. It spends $8 billion per year on its military. The U.S. defense budget, $968 billion, just for context of what's going on there in the Middle East. Senator, I thank you. Hope to see you soon. Meantime, hasta la vista, baby. Robots. Not something we've seen in the movies anymore. They are now available to bring into your living room. The latest. I'll explain it when we return. Plus, a night at the movies, the First Lady's big film premiere happening now. We are live from the red carpet at the Kennedy Center as you look live there at the Speaker of the House. It's 6:30 on the dot here. It's the bottom of the hour. Some of the top stories that we are following coming into our newsroom. It's 5:30 right now in Dallas, Texas, and this one comes from our next star station, KDAF. American Airlines, based in Fort Worth, first to announce this afternoon that it's planning to restart nonstop flights to Venezuela. The announcement coming just hours after President Trump said during his cabinet meeting earlier today that he is directing the Transportation Secretary to get that done.
We're going to be opening up all commercial airspace over Venezuela. American citizens will be very shortly able to go to Venezuela, and they'll be safe there.
Direct service to Venezuela has been prohibited since 2019. Of course, this comes just weeks after U.S. troops captured Nicolas Maduro. Well, from our next star station, WPIX in New York City, police have now filed hate crime charges against the 36-year-old man caught on camera repeatedly ramming his car into a Jewish organization's headquarters Wednesday evening. Thankfully, there were no injuries reported here. City police increasing security around places of worship as a precaution. Well, from our partners over at The Hill, the CDC is now reporting, get this, Americans are living longer. The agency finds the average life expectancy of a person in the U.S. now 79 years old. That is the highest mark in American history. The record comes as deaths from drug overdose and COVID-19 have dropped in recent years. Well, the future, speaking of it, it's here. Just this week, Elon Musk announcing he is pivoting Tesla away from two of its vehicle models to focus instead on robots, a move that he previewed overseas.
We will actually make so many robots and AI that they will actually saturate all human needs, meaning you won't be able to even think of something to ask the robot for at a certain point. My prediction is that there'll be more robots than people.
Now, while Musk makes the move, one company already debuting what they say is a friendly robot. Would you look at this right here? That is ready to join your household. The company behind that robot company joins me now, co-founder and CEO of Fauna Robotics, Rob Cochran, with us tonight here on The Hill. I see the drawings behind you. Thanks for being with us, Rob. Let me start with this. Look, because you're immersed in this, you do this every single day. Is Musk right that we're getting to a place where there's more robots than people?
I think it's a really exciting time. So thanks for having me on, Blake.
Of course.
We are heading towards a world where there are many robots in our daily lives, in places we work, in our homes, in factories and warehouses. So we set out to build something that could live, work, and play by our sides, and one that we could be excited about, that would be approachable and friendly and something you actually want to be around.
Tell me what it is. I mean, look at this thing. Like, that looks like, I don't know, it looks like a Pixar movie, to be quite honest, but this is real life. It's Sprout, right? I see a child there. Maybe it could help in the Mid-Atlantic with snow because there's no school right now. I don't know. What does it do?
Maybe it will help shovel some snow in New York, too. So this is Sprout, a friendly and capable humanoid platform. It's designed to operate safely in human spaces as a companion and helpful hand. We've already started making it available to early customers. So Disney is buying robots and interested in character-based experiences in their parks. Boston Dynamics is interested in developing a robot that can greet and guide people around places like a car showroom. And we've got a number of academic partners who are also doing very deep research in areas of robotics so that we can realize this future where there are many robots helping us in our daily lives.
You know, we're also at this point, Rob, where we see all these headlines day in and day out about AI. For example, we talked about it on the show the other day, Amazon with 16,000 job cuts or 14,000 job cuts because of it. And there's a big worry that it could mean your job one day or my job or someone's job, whatever, you know, field you're in. And now I'm looking at this with the robots coming and Elon saying there's going to be more of them than us. What about those concerns, maybe, that this cuts into the American workforce?
Yeah, so we started with something that feels much more friendly and collaborative. If Sprout feels like a robot that you might work alongside and wouldn't kind of scare you off from a job you might be working. I do think that there's a real challenge if you think about an aging workforce or service sector, you know, job shortages. There's this isn't necessarily about replacement, but about collaboration and how we can work alongside AI. And that's what we've designed Sprout for, is to be safe and helpful and supportive rather than a kind of replacement.
Do you worry about Washington, D.C. and regulation and laws and all that?
Look, I think we have very intentionally built Sprout. We're based in New York City, but we build and assemble our robots in the U.S. We think that delivers a great customer experience because we can support our customers where they are. It also allows for very fast iteration and engineering cycles with our team and the robots we build. So that's a core part of what we do.
Let me leave you with this. If Elon's right, when do we get to a spot where there's as many robots as humans here in the U.S.?
I'd say maybe 10 years away.
Wow, that is so soon. My gosh. Make your plans. Rob Cochran with us tonight here on the Hill. Building is tough. Inventing is tough. All the best, Rob. Wishing you the best
Blake.
of luck. By the way,
Bye.
Morgan Stanley believes that as many as 13.4 million households could own their own humanoid robot by 2050. Here come the robots. Meantime, a deal is reached. Just minutes ago, both Democrats and the president say that they've reached a deal to avert a government shutdown. Kind of, sort of. There's a little bit of a punt here, I'll explain. Plus, lights, camera, action. See who's lining up at the red carpet at Melania's premiere. A live look. Is that the Secretary of War there on the red carpet? It is. It means all the players are there. We will take you there live later this hour.
Next time you want to share that big story out of D.C., make sure it's from The Hill, because TheHill.com is America's most shared political news brand for a reason. Trusted, credible, nonpartisan. Visit TheHill.com today.
So as we've been reporting throughout this hour, there is movement right now up on Capitol Hill, and this time the breaking news comes in from the President of the United States. Senators have reached a deal to avoid a government shutdown, and President Trump posting this on Truth Social, saying Republicans and Democrats in Congress have come together to get the vast majority of the government funded until September, while at the same time providing an extension to the Department of Homeland Security, including the very important Coast Guard. Hopefully, both Republicans and Democrats will give a very much needed bipartisan yes vote. That from the president moments ago. Joining us now, Julia Manchester, White House reporter for The Hill. Annalise Keller, former communications director for Senator Cory Gardner, and Dan Cannon, former Battleground States director for both the Biden and Harris campaigns. Hello to you both. Thanks for being in. Nice moment to have our White House reporter from The Hill here. I would also add, decode that for me from Trump.
Trump.
That post about what's going on with the shutdown. It seems like they have a deal, but they're still going to negotiate what funding to DHS looks like.
Absolutely. And DHS is obviously a huge sticking point right here. And I think a lot of it depends on the administration's next moves going forward when it comes to DHS and the situation in Minneapolis. We have seen the administration back off in many ways in terms of, not fully back off, but in terms of how they're handling the situation. We know that there have been some, removal of, some ICE officers. We know that Homan's in, Bovino's out. So I think, it's a little give and take, but they still have more negotiating to do.
More negotiating to do. You're focused on House Republicans. That this is not necessarily a slam dunk, you don't think?
It's something to watch. I also think we do need to watch what happens in the Senate. Senate Republicans, there are going to be some that are not going to support this deal. If they had their way, they would have not pulled out the DHS portion of this agreement. So remember, this is 6 appropriation bills to fund the government. They've already done 6. And this was something that was negotiated by Republicans and Democrats. The House has already passed this. And then based on the events over the weekend in Minneapolis, Democrats are saying they can no longer in good conscience go forward with this DHS funding. So that's what we're fighting about. And Republicans and Majority Leader Thune would have gone ahead and put this on the floor. And in fact, they did, and it failed, except for Trump got involved. And he said he negotiated directly with Chuck Schumer. He rolled Senate Republicans here and said, Chuck Schumer, we are going to figure this out. I do not want a government shutdown. And I think that speaks to the sort of tone and tenor of the nation right now.
Rolled Senate Republicans?
Yeah, that's how I see it. That's how I viewed it. I knew a lot of Senate Republicans. I was hearing from them, and they wanted to go forward with this package and basically put it on Democrats and say, okay, if you want to shut down the government over this, that is okay. You heard Senator McCormick speaking earlier. The One Big Beautiful Bill, of course, had more than $70 billion for ICE in it. So this isn't really functionally changing the amount of money that ICE is getting here.
How far should Democrats push here? You think they have a little bit of leverage?
Well, they do, and I think they have an imperative to push on this, at least a bit. I mean, this agency has been out of control. We made this point the other day. Obviously, they can't get at all the funding that was given to ICE in the Big Beautiful Bill. There's $100 billion there, but this is a chance to have some reform, some leverage to change how they're operating. And it's great, I think, that Tom Homan is taking a more professional approach and tact in Minneapolis than Noem and Bovino did, and the tone is different, that is true. But there's still an approach here overall with ICE, and a lot of concerns about training, a lot of concerns about tactics, a lot of concerns about the size and scale of the budget and the mandate. And it's a chance for Democrats to get to the table on this. And Republicans would do well to work with them because the American public has totally lost faith in this agency and their approach in the last couple of days.
We've watched a lot of, whatever you think about Donald Trump, he's open, he brings the cameras in, and when it comes to cabinet meetings, we saw this in the first administration, we've seen this in this administration. He lets the camera roll, it goes on for hours, he takes lots of questions, they go around the table. Not today. This one lasted about an hour and 20 minutes, took no questions, Julia. And then let me show you here who did not speak in the cabinet meeting. About half the officials did, and of those who did not, Kristi Noem, top left there of your screen. What, if anything, does what the president did today signal to you, Julia?
This is incredibly significant because we know that in past cabinet meetings, President Trump has all of his cabinet secretaries go around and talk about the progress they're making, what they're working on, et cetera. He seemed to handpick a few. It's not like she was the only cabinet secretary.
No, big list there, which I just showed.
There was a big list, but it's notable that he didn't go to everyone. And not taking questions, that's obviously a choice. And then just a few minutes ago in the Oval Office, he signed an executive order on addiction, did not take questions. I can't tell you how highly unusual this is for Donald Trump. And I think it's interesting that today started off with Tom Homan in Minneapolis giving this press conference. I think they're very much trying to shift Homan, to being the face of this situation.
Is that what's going on?
Yeah, that's how I read that as well. The one sort of wrinkle that I'll say, and as we're watching what happens with Secretary Noem and sort of her political future, I think the more that Democrats push for an impeachment effort, the more that Senators Murkowski and Tillis, who are not traditionally aligned with the MAGA base, the more that they come out and sort of say that she needs to go and be replaced, I think the safer her job is.
Doesn't every time Hakeem Jeffries say that, it makes it more likely that she stays?
Sure, that's probably true, but it's also true that I think she's effectively neutered in this position. I think Tom Homan's now in charge, by all accounts. And there's been some really good reporting about the back of the house politics here, that Homan, who's done this, under Democratic administrations and Republican administrations, has an approach far more aggressive than I would take, but there's a policy approach he has to go get criminals. And what Bovino and Noem were doing, I think, was creating a show for Trump that was about the politics, and there was a tension there. There's a lot of reporting on this. And Homan had lost initially the battle of what was going to be the approach in Minneapolis, and that approach has gone very, very badly and tragically. So I think he's back on top, and he's running the show.
It was interesting as well because the president did not focus a lot on immigration during that cabinet meeting. Here's what he did say, though.
Our border is very secure, record-setting secure. We had 0 illegal aliens being admitted into our country for the last 8 months. That's hard for even me to believe.
I noted earlier this week, Annalise, with Mick Mulvaney and Sean Spicer, that what the president is trying to do is say, look at what we did on the border. Because even Democrats will admit, I just had the mayor of San Diego sitting here saying, job well done. Can he do that? Can he make this pivot and say, don't look here, look there, because I did a good job here?
I mean, the challenge with that is he's right. He has closed the border. And, but the American people were focused on that when it was a problem. I think it's hard to make people, go to vote in a midterm election when, you're not a border town that's having those challenges. You're not across the country seeing the influx of migrants coming into your communities. So I think, sure, can he talk about it? Of course. Will people hear him and feel like, yes, that was a problem that's now fixed? But it's not this pressing issue that's driving people to the ballot anymore. So I don't think it's going to be effective in terms of turning people out.
Where success actually hurts in some sense, I guess?
Yeah, almost, because I think that's why, at times people wouldn't want to solve a problem because it's better as a political football.
I do agree with that. I think there's a lot of politics in the Biden years about that. But I will say, on the border piece, had he closed the border the way he did and solved that problem, and then concurrently or right afterwards got on the stick on affordability, he'd be in a much better place. But instead he did his tariff regime, they did the big, beautiful bill, they gave $100 billion to ICE. They still haven't solved the ACA problem on the doubled premiums. They haven't done anything to tackle affordability legislatively or otherwise. If he had solved that problem and then moved on to something else people care about, he'd be in a stronger place. But now we're talking about ICE and this reckless abuse.
I'll give you the last word.
There are a lot of swing voters who voted for Donald Trump in 2024 on the issues of the border and the economy. They feel right now, polling shows he's not there yet on the economy and fixing that, but they feel that he's gone way too far on the border. This is Donald Trump trying to say, look what I did. But to Annalise's point, I don't know how salient that is going into November.
By the way, DHS agencies, and as we talk about funding and all this and the new battle that's going to happen, they were given $168 billion in the One Big Beautiful Bill. $74 billion of that went to ICE. So consider that as all this conversation picks up about funding ICE. Dan, Annalise, Julia, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Still to come. The Life of a First Lady. The new documentary about Melania Trump premieres in minutes here in Washington. We are live on the red carpet. Our Judy Kurtz joins us on the other side. All right, live look just down the road from us. President Trump and the First Lady. Let's go live pictures. Red carpet. We got a red carpet. Show live pictures. Because they are on their way. There we go. You see the name there, Melania. Melania's Trump's new movie. The film follows the First Lady behind the scenes during the final days of the 2024 election. Early box office projections for the film. A bit underwhelming so far. We'll see what happens. The guest list for tonight's premiere is star-studded, the red carpet. And look who we find out on the red carpet. Our Judy Kurtz, there for it all. Judy, here's how I know this red carpet is inside. Because it feels like 9 right now here in Washington. It's bitter. You'd have a jacket on if it was outside. I'm glad they brought you all inside tonight.
Oh, Blake, it's funny you should mention that. It is probably about 9 degrees in the Trump Kennedy Center today. I'm freezing, so if you see me shivering, it's because they have the doors open, so you should not be envious of me being here. That being said, we are live on the not-so-red carpet. It's actually a black carpet tonight. This is a first for the First Lady, a glitzy premiere for her feature film documentary that's all about her. Amazon putting a huge marketing push behind Melania ahead of its opening day tomorrow, reportedly shelling out $40 million for the documentary, another $35 million to roll out this film, and then rolling out the red carpet here tonight. Of course, the president and Melania Trump, as you mentioned, will be here, along with quite the hodgepodge, shall we say, of entertainers, cabinet members, influencers. We've already seen some of them stroll down the carpet already. We hear the guest list includes Usha Vance, Dr. Phil, reality TV stars the Kristi family. Blake, I'm sure a personal favorite of yours, rapper Waka Flocka Flame, an array of conservative influencers, Pam Bondi, Marco Rubio, Scott Besson, a lot of folks. And Melania Trump has called herself a very private person. She said she hopes that this documentary will really...
Yeah, there's Howard Lutnick
we got
behind
Howard
you.
Lutnick behind me. We can see if we can grab him.
Yeah, go for it. Go
Just
for it.
a
See what he
real
says.
eclectic mix. Eclectic mix. All right, let's see.
So it's really going to be fun to see how she put it together and how that went. And the amazing thing about Melania is how elegant she is and how elegant she carries herself. And so I'm really looking forward to the film to see, does it really capture her? And we're going to see it really soon. So
Hey,
it'll be fun.
Mr. Lutnick, we're live on News Nation. Why was it important for you to be here tonight?
Well, you know, it's the president is my friend, Melania is my friend. There's a movie with her name, Melania. I couldn't possibly miss it, and I think it will present her beautifully. I can't wait to see the elegance of the film and how she is, because she is a brilliantly elegant woman, and I can't wait to see how the film depicts her. It should be so fun.
Are you in it too or no?
I don't know. We'll find out.
We'll find out. All right. All right. He doesn't know if he's in it yet, but he's going to go see. They're clearing the carpet, though, Blake, so that must mean the president and the first lady
Coming
are
soon.
on their way.
Judy, I want this for the record. It's on live TV, so it's on the record. But you can't ever say I don't have your back, quite literally, because I got you to turn around there to let you know that the Commerce Secretary was there. Great job, Judy Kurtz.
Very good. Right.
Live there on the red carpet.
A dad joke, if I ever heard one, Blake.
Judy, great job. Best of luck tonight. Have fun out there. All right. Still to come, Elizabeth Vargas reports here on News Nation. She's following the trial of a husband accused of murdering his wife and a random man with the help of the child's au pair. Just wait until you hear the testimony in court today. It's coming up 7 o'clock Eastern here on News Nation. I thank you so much for watching us here on the Hill. You never know what you're going to get. A little live red carpet, some breaking news involving the Senate and the president, and maybe a dad joke or two. Hope you're here for it tomorrow. I'm Blake. See ya.